Howdy folks, TechTexN here, bringing you Kerbal Space Program. We are working our way up quite a bit now. However, the particular series here will probably be ending soon because of the update, and I'll just probably have to start all over again. However, thinking a little bit more on what I'm going to do with the Kerbal Space Program, I'm probably going to do two more playlists. One following career mode with the new update, first contracts, and I'm also going to do another playlist with installing a ton of mods. I still haven't figured out how I'm going to do it because it would seem a bit tedious uninstalling the mods every time I go to career mode, or I might just blend it all together and just do career mode with a ton of mods. Who knows? We'll see what happens when it happens. But for now, today we are going to cover docking because I know a lot of people out there are having trouble docking. So we are going to go ahead and launch not this, but we are going to launch a, oh yes, it is this one, Space Station. Yes. Now, as usual, I have a tendency to overdo things. In fact, I overdid several things. I put way too much fuel and thrust on this, but who cares? I like being wasteful. In this case, I also overdid it on the docking ports. We're not going to be docking to all these ports today. That'll take way too long. However, I at least want to do two different docking maneuvers just for sakes of practice, and I don't know, I'm hoping something will go wrong so I can at least introduce that. But I have two different types of docking ports. Now, just to kind of show what I built here, this is basically the hitchhiker storage container. Now, the hitchhiker storage container can hold up to 4 Kerbals, but there's only 2 docking ports, one on each end, and it's not even an actual docking port. What it actually is it's one of the radial attachment points. Now, I'm sorry, not radial attachment point, but it's an attachment point for the docking port. However, I was able to add more docking ports because I unlocked the radial attachment port. You can see if I click on this, it allows you to add a place to dock anywhere along certain surfaces around the sides. So that way you're not limited to the 2 endpoints where you typically have to either build a rocket or put whatever else. Now, this is going to go up with a probe because the hitchhiker storage container is technically not a control module, meaning I can't send this up without having either Kerbal with a command module or command pod, or either that or a probe. So, and also I will not be able to control it or maneuver it or turn it around, open solar panels or anything like that without a probe permanently attached to it or any other command module. But of course you could always dock with it and then control it, so that's no biggie. So that's what we're going to do today. We have 2 different kinds of ports. We have the regular port, and then we have the junior port, which is basically a smaller port. It's not for transferring Kerbals, but you can still transfer resources. And of course, those are 2 separate unlocks, the Clampotron Junior and the Clampotron docking port. Usually you get the Clampotron docking port, the regular one, first. Now, word of advice when building your space station: make sure you have plenty of batteries, plenty of solar panels. Again, I way overdid it. You don't have to put this much, but make sure you have plenty on there. And also an SAS or some kind of control, some sort of control source, or mainly an inline reaction wheel would be good, or SAS, so that way you can turn it however way you want to, and you'll know why as we attempt to dock with it. The other thing I highly recommend is make sure you have plenty of lighting, because many times you'll be approaching this thing on the dark side, or maybe you're approaching it on the day side, but while you're docking, you're going to be moving around to the night side, and it makes it difficult to see. So I recommend adding lights both on the station and on the ship that you'll be docking with, and I will also demonstrate why that's so. Okay, so without further ado, let's get our station up to standard orbit, and I probably will not show me putting this thing in orbit the whole way, because that'll just take up too much of your time. You know how to put ships in orbit. This is no different, just maybe a little heavier, but hey, unlock some heavier rockets and that's not a problem. And use your asparagus staging if that helps, and so forth. So without further ado, here we go. Standard orbit. and I'll cut to the next ship now. Okay, so now we are with docking test ship 1. Now, this uses the shielded port, which I think you can unlock with the regular docking port. If not, then just use the regular docking port. That's fine. The shielded docking port will probably help a little bit with aerodynamics and also just help protecting it during ascent. So, yeah, that's what you had there. I didn't have the command pods that I wanted to use, so I just went ahead and used this one. It's actually for in-atmosphere stuff, but you know what? It looks cool anyway. I'm still going to use it. And notice I put parachutes on this. I do plan on undocking this and actually returning back to Kerbin. So, you know, a lot of things you have to think about when you dock, if it's just something temporary or you're just testing it. Do you want to keep it up there with your station? Because if you don't, you better keep an engine on there and also make sure you have enough monopropellant to maneuver away from the space station and do a deorbit burn. So make sure that you have that ready. Notice I put lights on here. Lights, again, to help dock with the ship, because if you can't see what you're doing, you can't tell how far away you are, then it's going to make it a lot more difficult. 2 lights is enough. If you put more than that, it gets a little too bright, and that also makes it difficult to see. These lights are actually very bright. So, of course, I use my asparagus staging. I probably, again, overdid it because we use that to get to the moon. But I want to make sure there's plenty of fuel, and plus, I want to make sure that I have enough fuel to maneuver and show you how we're going to maneuver, because that's the hard part. So, without further ado, let's decide on who's going up. Oh, I forgot to put people in the station, but that's okay. We'll unlock command pods in the future and send them up. All right, let's see. CV, I think I'll have you join. All right, let's launch. Okay, so here we're going to take off, but before you do, there's a couple things you want to keep in mind. Now, sometimes stuff will be out of orbit, and it would be a good idea before you launch to target with the station that you are going to connect to. So you right-click on that and set as target. So now we have the space station module targeted. And what we're going to do, since the orbit is going over KSB station right here, in fact, since we did a standard orbit, we'll always be under its orbit. But if you have a different wacky orbit, you might have to wait and fast forward time until your ship is underneath the orbit of whatever station that may be circulating. Because if you have a station that circles around the poles, then you'll have to wait till you're underneath its orbit. Now, in this case, just to make things more easy, we're also going to wait for the station to arrive a little bit before it's directly above us. That way, when we launch and we get into standard orbit, we'll be a lot closer to the station, and that makes it a lot more easy to intersect with the station. So, again, it's a good idea to have all that ready right here and now. And in fact, I'm going to go ahead and fast forward time. And you see the station is coming around. And like I said, a little before, because it takes time for you to launch. Now, something to also keep in mind, we've discussed in orbits before. If you have a lower orbit, you're going to go faster. If you have a higher orbit, you're going to go slower. If you're in elliptical orbit, you'll be slower at the apoapsis, and you'll be faster at the periapsis. You're using all those little tidbits of information to get an intersect with the space station module. You're trying to get within a certain range of the space station module. So from there, I'll show you another little trick to actually getting closer to it. But right now, the goal is to get at least about 1 kilometer away from the station. So without further ado, I think I'm going to go ahead and launch, because it takes time to get up there. Whoops, I don't need RCS on just yet. By the way, for RCS, you hit the R key, but we're not going to do that just yet. We'll do that when we get up there. For now, we'll just use SAS, crank up the throttle, and boy, I hope my stages are good, because I didn't check. And you can see our target is starting to come overhead. Okay, why is... Okay, I don't know what that was all about. For some reason, my ship decided to just twirl around. I must have something not built right. Come on, get back in position. Alright, heading above the clouds, and the target is just going over us. Whatever you do, don't collide with it. Now, I'm also going to try to pay close attention to whether we're going to be behind it or in front of it. From the looks of it, we'll definitely be behind it, so I'm going to get into a slightly lower orbit than the station, which is, periaps is 98, so we're going to get under 98 kilometers. Or, excuse me, 98 meters. Or, yes, 98 kilometers. Ah. Okay, come on, come on, come on. Let's throttle down to conserve fuel. Of course, we still have plenty. We have more than enough fuel. Since we're not carrying all that science like we did before. Alright. Now, just like the moon, we are going to have to worry about our ascending node and descending node. But we'll get there. I'm going to go up to about, 95. No, don't show me the intersect. 95, there we go. Sometimes these intersect nodes get in the way, but that's okay. We can work around it. Alright, we're getting in a 94, 97, so we'll remain faster than the station. We're going to aim for our node. Now remember, that purple is the station itself, the target. Now you're also going to have to keep an eye on this right here. This is speed relative, or I guess you could say speed relativity, I suppose. And this is with respect to your orbit. So we are going 1100 meters per second in orbit. Alright, burn is 40 seconds, but it could be longer than that if I run out of those two tanks. I might be okay. I'll risk it. Well, I might start burning at 21 seconds. Again, you don't need to be perfect, but the closer the better. Starting to look like a Y-Wing from Star Wars. But not quite. Okay, I can fast forward just a little bit. Okay, there we go. 23, 22. Alright, yeah. Wow, that sucker is going fast. We are falling way behind. I should have started a little bit ahead of there. That's okay. We'll speed up. Again, as long as we have a lower orbit... Yeah, I knew I'd run out. As long as we have a lower orbit, we're going to go faster. Just make sure we're not dipping in the atmosphere, then we definitely will not go faster. Here comes our periaps. And we have 93 and 100. Yeah, we're a little high, but that's okay. We'll make our adjustments. Let's see. That's his periaps. Alright, and at the node, that's the descending node, so we need to ascend. Not too much. Come on. Oh, there it was. Look how twitchy it likes to get. Oh, man. You know what? I'm sure that's close enough. Oh, wrong way. There we go. So we're going to take care of our ascending, descending nodes. 8 minutes to that point. Now notice, you know what? I'm going to keep my Apple apps at 100. The reason is because I want my parry apps lower, because that's when I really speed up. And in fact, I may lower this some more just so I can catch up faster. Then when the time comes, when my next intersect is at it's going to be at its closest, then I'll bring the parry apps a lot closer. You know what? I'm actually darn near the same. Wow, I did not mean that to happen. So I'm going to lower my parry apps when I go around, so I can go a lot faster. Because if I go at this speed, it will take forever to get to the intersect, but we're already on a good start. Alright, come on, speed up. Let's go, faster! It's going to be a 1 second burn. Alright. You know what? That's close enough. 0 and 0. Okay, so far our intersect are bouncing around all over the place. This will happen. Just go with the values that appear to be the closest. Right now our separation is 262 kilometers, and that's way too much. So what I'm going to do is at my Apple apps, I'm going to bring down my parry apps a little bit to 85. Yeah, that should speed things up. Now notice as I bring that parry apps down, that intersect gets pretty close. Actually, you know what? I might be able to do this on the next swing here. Look at that. Intersect number 2, 0.2 kilometers. Of course, this is the first intersect, which is the speed we're going now. But by coming down on a parry up, oh, well, that won't work because that's going to bring me down to the atmosphere. So I do not want to do that. That will be disastrous. 75. Well, let's see. The first intersect is going to be 158. Okay, what are they smoking? Come on. Okay, intersect 1 is 262 kilometers. So how I'm determining this is saying, okay, at each rotation, I kind of want this to be cut almost by half or maybe a third. So that way, on the second or third pass around orbit, I'll be a whole lot closer where I can make a lot more minute adjustments. So in this case, I want to make big adjustments because we're so far apart. I'm going to say, okay, this first intersect, there's nothing I could do about it unless I do a maneuver over here, which would be a waste of fuel. I'm going to say, all right, let's bring down the parry apps so that way the next time I come around, I'll be going fast enough where I catch up to 165 kilometers. Let's see, let's see. Well, you know what? Let's bring that down. I wonder how much I could bring this down. Let's see if I can bring it down to maybe 120. I'm going to try for about 120. Ooh, that's cutting it though, because I'm bringing my parry apps pretty darn close to the atmosphere. So I think that's about... oh my goodness. Yeah, you know what? I'll just try it. We'll see what happens. And then the next time we come around, I'll bring up the parry apps so that way the following intersect won't be so far apart. Now, why is my node way over? Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right. Okay. So, next node, 9 minutes. Let's crank up the speed. We'll catch up to you soon enough, station. So, as you can see, we're kind of in this little race. Race around the track. More like a chase than anything. Now, in a lot of cases, you might end up in front of the station, and in that case, you would have a higher orbit to slow down to let them catch up to you. So that's really the only difference. Oh, that was too much, so I'm going to have to bring that up. I mean, I could get through that, no problem, but I don't want to mess with my Apple apps right now. So let's bring that back up. There we go. That'll work. Alright, so right now my intersect, well, of course, intersect 1 will be 262, which we've technically already hit. I don't know why that's showing different. But our next time around will be 134. Yeah, these nodes will get very, very, very twitchy. So, without further ado, I like to get this nice top-down view to see everything in action, and you'll see how we catch up to this thing. Funny how when I speed things up, I could see the intersect nodes just fine. And you'll notice that he's going 2251 meters per second. I'm going 2318 meters per second. So I was going about 100 meters per second faster, almost. Maybe a little slower than that. Now look at the intersect. 134, so we're looking good. Let's see. Oh, you know what? I'm going to quick save, and here's why. If I pass this intersect, and my next intersect will be off, or if I notice that we pass him on the next intersect, then I'll probably reload, come back, and adjust my peri-apps from the Apple apps. Now, if you're not wanting to use the quick save feature, you can do maneuvers from the other sides to get a better intersect, and then make another adjustment at the intersect. And I'll kind of go over that here in a little bit. But I have done it before, and it is not too bad. Takes a little practice. Oh, look at that! Ah! The next intersect will be 5.8 kilometers. So, that wasn't quite close enough. I wanted it to be a little closer. You know what? Let's see what happens if I do a little manual maneuvering and burn a little on my prograde. Oh, that just went 7 kilometers. I made it worse! No! That's okay. Wonder if I could do a little maneuvering from here. Ah. Yeah, here we go. Okay, so notice that from here, I'm going to maneuver a little to the left because it kind of changes my orbit, or I guess you could say it moves this entire orbit. If this were the center of my orbit, it just kind of moves the center of the whole orbit over a little bit. So, yeah, that changes things a little bit. However, it gets me closer to the intersect. Now, here's the downside of doing this. My intersect will be a little short-lived if I do it too much, and I'll zoom right by that station, perhaps a little too fast. But I'm going to try to be careful not to do too much here. All right, we're at 3.6 kilometers. 2.3. 0.7. Yes, there we go. So our maneuver node is ready. 5 minutes to burn. I have plenty of fuel to get that done. As a matter of fact, I still have this tank and a whole other tank with another engine, so we are more than good. I'm gonna have to dump all this stuff before we attempt to dock. Alright, so we got 5 minutes to burn. And it's going to be a very, very, very small burn. Only 5.6 delta V. In fact, you could probably make that maneuver... Well, I know you can make that maneuver with monopropellant alone. A little faster. Whoa, not too fast. I don't want to miss it. So yes, by hovering your mouse over intersect 1 and intersect 2, and basically it just means the first intersect and the next intersect, and then, of course, it won't show a third intersect until after you pass by that first intersect. Then it'll show you another set of intersect 1 and 2. Okay, 30 seconds to burn. And, hovering your mouse over will give you that distance and how long before you get there. Which one is the target position and which one is your position. So you know which one is ahead and which one has fallen behind. Oh my goodness, this is going to be a very... Whoa. Oh, no, I didn't want to do that just yet. Okay, now I do. What's the intersect? 1.2? Whoa, I didn't want to burn too much. Let me turn the other way and burn back a little bit. Actually, 1.2 should be fine. But I particularly like to try to get a little less. There we go, 0.9. I like to get less than 1. That just makes my day so much more easy. We're not going to mess with the Apple app, so we're not going to burn at the Perry apps. However, when we intersect, what's going to happen is this is going to change to target. When that changes to target, and don't worry, I'll try to explain this better when we get there. What's going to happen is our nav ball is going to change. All of our icons are going to change position. Why? Because what's going to happen is when we get a close encounter with the station module, is the nav ball is going to show us prograde and retrograde relative to the target, not relative to our orbit around Kerbin. And by knowing that, we can burn retrograde to slow down our speed relative to the target. And by doing that, if we're close enough, it'll automatically fix our orbits to match up a lot more closely. Because what's going to happen is, if you're passing by another object and you're going faster, then you're going a certain speed faster than that other object. Well, that's the speed that it's going to give you. Now, if our orbits are different, the speed's going to constantly change as we approach apoapsis and periapsis. But again, by finiting our speeds and distances as we get closer, then the closer our orbits are going to match until we dock, and then we have a completely synchronous orbit. All right. I think I've yacked on long enough. What I'm going to do is, let's see. I'm going to put a note here just as a self-reminder that we're going to get there in about 18 minutes. I'm going to save this game because we're going to do some fun maneuvering. This is the part I enjoy. Why? Because it's stressful. Yeah, I know, that's weird. This is a good kind of stress right here. Ooh. My periaps just skimmed the atmosphere. That's not good. That's okay. We already broke free from it. That's... Whew. Did I not say that these things can be stressful? And actually, it's sometimes a good idea to put your station a little higher than just standard orbit. So that way it's easier to go a lower orbit so you can... Oh, here we go. Now notice our nav ball changed to target. This is the speed I'm going relative to the target. Now I'm going to go to staging view. And look at that. If you look around, you'll notice the target is right there. It is going... our distance is 21 kilometers. And now that's too far away to make maneuvers at this point. Again, that's why you want to try to get less than, I believe, 5 kilometers. Although with 5 kilometers, you'll probably have a few struggles. So that's why I always suggest try to get down to 1 kilometer, or at least get down to about 2 kilometers, and then make your adjustments from retrograde. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and, well, actually it doesn't matter. It's going to move around the nav ball. All right, we're about 5 minutes till we get there, and I'm just going to kind of stay in this view while we head that way. Now notice the speed relative to the target is constantly changing because we still have 2 different orbits. Though they're getting a lot closer together, we still have 2 different orbits, and that station's going to be swaying all over the place. Alright. And at the moment, I'm just kind of eyeballing this. I am watching the station. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of the node. I don't need that anymore. I'm just going to keep an eye on the station, wait till it gets to about 1 kilometer, because we should be still about 1 kilometer away. If it flickers right, I can see it. Ignore the 7.5. That's next time around. Actually, it's not even the next time around. I don't know where that's getting 7.5, but we're going to be meeting at 0.9, and it's getting pretty close. Now, we're going 29 meters per second relative to the target, and that's a big difference from what it was earlier. What was it, like 60 or something? I don't remember. Okay. Get a little closer, speeding up time. And there we are. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, I'm going to point retrograde relative to target. Make sure that says target, because sometimes clicking on this will change. Alright, so I'm burning relative to the target, and I want this to equal 0. At least for now. Now, it's not going to stay 0. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Burn relative to target. Alright, we're going 0.1, which is actually close enough, so I'm going to F5 save. Because now we're in a fairly close encounter. Now look at our orbits. Look how perfect our orbits are nearly at. We are very close. But we're going to perfect that even more. And this is how you do it. So, that was actually a pretty important part right there. That when you do get within a very close distance, by burning retrograde relative to the target, your orbit will fix itself. However, we're still 700 meters away from it. First, I'm going to get rid of that because that's too much. Okay, now, I'm pretty much going to be using the nav ball for most of this time now. What I'm going to do is I'm kind of rotating my nav ball so I could see retrograde and prograde, but more importantly, seeing the target. So I'm going to point the nose cone of my ship towards the target on the nav ball. I'm going to burn forward a little bit. Now notice the prograde is off to the left. Well, that means I'm pretty much going to fly by to the left of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the nose roughly the same distance as the prograde is from the target. Put the nose about the same distance from the target on the nav ball. And by doing that, I want that prograde to be right on top of the target. And kind of same thing here. The prograde is a little up and to the left of that target right there. So I want my nose cone down to the right. And you don't want to burn too much because you don't want to fly at this thing way too fast. Okay, so now that I'm going towards it, I'm going to burn retrograde a moment because I do need to get rid of my... Oh, actually, no, I don't. I don't. At this point, we're 500 meters away. I'm turning on RCS, and I'm going to click on docking. Now, W, S, A, and D are a little different. Hold down S to stop relative to the target. You want to slow down. If your nose cone is pointing towards the target, there I go. Now I'm going away from it. I'm going to go towards it. Actually, I'm going to try to... Oops. Okay, so I'm going 0.2 meters per second, but that's okay. Okay, now I need to kind of explain the RCS controls. Now with RCS turned on, and again you turn on the RCS with R, and you can leave SAS on to kind of help control your ship. When you're building your ship, you want your RCS controls somewhat in the middle, and you want maybe 4 along these sides, because if you only have 2, then you may not be able to control all of your axis that you're trying to move. Now, there's 2 different types of control modes. There's this UN, and then there's this ROT. That's the rotational, and I forgot what the UN is. But anyways, I want to say unilateral, but I'm not sure. Okay, basically the difference is, and you can see plainly here, when I have UN and I hold down the D key to go right, it's kind of like strafing right, and same thing with left. I'm strafing left. If I hit W, I go forward, a forward thrust, and holding down S gives me a reverse thrust. Now, if I hit spacebar while in docking mode, don't do that in staging mode. Be very careful. Don't hit spacebar in staging mode. Hitting spacebar in docking mode will change me to rotational mode. So now I'm rotating instead of strafing. So basically, it's changing which control types you need to use. Now, I don't want to waste all my monopropellant because I don't have any on the station, so I'm going to try to use up as much as I can here. Let's see. So what you want is the prograde on the target, but at a fairly low speed. At this point, you're 500 meters per second away. It takes a while to slow down with just monopropellant alone. So, oops, I'm still in rotational. Let's change that to our lateral controls. And notice with D, that prograde can move left and right as well. Now, let's say I need to move it up and I'm still in my lateral control. Shift will actually move you up and control will move you down. And watch the nav ball as I go up and down with control and shift. Same thing with A and D, left and right. And what happened to my icon? Oh, I wasn't going forward. I actually stopped there for a moment. Okay, so this is good right here. We are actually going forward, so I'm going to thrust forward a little bit more. We want to go a little faster than 0.1 meters per second because we want to get there. I'm going to go ahead and open my shield for the docking port, and here's another tidbit. I'm going to slow down again because I don't want to crash into it while I'm explaining. What you want to do is you want to right-click on your docking port and say control from here. The reason why you want to do this is because you want your nav ball, the nose cone, to be the actual docking port and not the control module. In this case, they're pretty much the same, but on some other ships, it's actually better to use it from the docking port because you might have a docking port on the side or you might have the docking port off center, whatever the case. If you target from the docking port, then you can go ahead and center the nose cone of the docking port rather than the control module, which could be in a totally different position relative to the docking port. So I hope that made some sense right there. Now, when we get closer to the station module, we're going to target the docking port on the station module, so that way as we get closer, we're not actually going to run into the probe, which is the control module on the station. We want to target the docking port we're going to actually dock with. Now, there's multiple docking ports, so we're going to get a little closer. Now, by the way, as you get closer, your prograde is going to veer off a little bit now and then. Again, that's because you're still in imperfect orbit, but as you get closer and you make these finite adjustments, your orbit is actually getting closer and closer in sync with the station module. So, in short, just make more adjustments on the way. And you don't want to do it too frequently because you don't want to waste the monopropellant. You want to wait till this goes off a little bit more. Now, as for me, I just want to go a little faster. Let's go 2 meters per second. There we go. And notice I have my lights on, although the the shield off that docking port may be blocking part of my light, so that could make it a little bit more difficult, but that's okay. We have lights on the station module. So we are approaching our target. Making my small adjustments, and sometimes you have to switch to rotational to adjust your nose cone. I didn't really have to adjust it much there, but for larger ships, it starts to become more difficult, and you will be docking larger ships, because that's a ton of fun. Alright, still approaching. Let's go 3 meters per second. I don't want to go too fast, because I don't want to collide with my station. Alright, we can see we're getting closer. There it is. In fact, I think my green light's already shining on it. Wow, those lights go very far. And I'm just going to dock on the big flat side. That's going to be the easiest side to dock with. And also, you know, make sure you have enough electrical charge, and if you need to, extend your solar panels. Alright, still approaching. Okay, I'm going to try to aim. There we go. Set as target. There we go. So I've set that docking port, and boy, I hope I clicked on the right one. Yep. And notice my angle that I'm approaching is way off, so I'm going to go ahead and start slowing down so I could change that. I'm going to go ahead and change my rotation because I'll be facing more or less this way. I'll improve it a little better when I get closer. Alright, going back to lateral control, and I'm just going to strafe left here. Now, you don't have to hold it down the whole time. What you do is you just push down a little bit and just wait till you get in a little closer. Sometimes waiting is the best way to remain fuel efficient. Let Newton's first law of motion do the work. Alright, look at that. That is our target. Alright, so I'm going to start slowing down on that axis. And I'm kind of waiting for that nose to get in front. And there we go. Alright, I'm going to lower a little bit. Look at that. Now, if you're off by a little bit, don't worry. These docking clamps are magnetic, so they will correct themselves. Okay, I'm going to rotate a little bit because I notice my angle a little bit off. Sometimes changing your camera angle to the side will help you, and look from the bottom to the top. I'm going 0.5 meters per second, so I'm going nice and slow, but you want to get slower as you get closer. You don't want to hit this thing probably harder than... Well, you definitely don't want to hit it more than 1 meter per second, I would say. Well, I mean, you can in some cases. These things are actually a little more sturdy than they seem. But, yeah, some things can happen. And we're almost there. I'm going to slow down to 0.1 meters per second. And you'll notice it'll probably... oh, you know what? My angle is still a bit off. Hang on, let me fix this. I'm going to go to rotation. Change my rotation there. Alright, going back to lateral control. Go up a little bit. And there it goes. Magnets took over and slammed me up against it. And click! It is connected, and we are docked with the station. And really, that's all there is to it. From here, if there was another fuel tank on another docking port, you can transfer fuel by holding down the Alt key, right-clicking on the two different fuel tanks. And, of course, you share electricity at this point. So if the station needed electricity, you just bust out with your solar panels on your ship and provide. Or your ship may be low on electricity, and my station will certainly provide. It has tons of electricity. Again, I like to overdo things. And these things actually have a purpose. Now, my station does not. My station hardly has a purpose, other than maybe I could put some fuel tanks on here as a fueling station, and some Kerbals if I wanted some Kerbals. But you can also attach other ship segments for interplanetary missions. So instead of hauling an entire ship in one launch, you piece it together on the station with a few extra fuel tanks, so it becomes a multi-launch mission. And then what you do is you dock those parts together and then send that big ship on an interplanetary travel. So it does have purpose, these stations, and you can get a lot of fun with these. There's a lot of cool mods out there. My goodness, there are tons of mods out there for stations to do a lot of fun things with docking. And in fact, there's even moon stations or moon bases for mods that you can build that use docking ports to connect segments of a base. So that looks like a lot of fun, which I would honestly really like to try in a future playlist for this game. Again, after the update comes out. So that's how you dock. It's piece of cake. And you know what? I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to end this video here because that is about as simple as docking gets. You know, the Junior's pretty much done the same way. It's just a little smaller, therefore it just requires a little bit more precise maneuvers maybe, but that's about it. Everything else is the same. So, with that said, y'all come back now, you hear? Bye!